Two astronauts have an accident in space that nearly kills them. When they get back to Earth, their wives notice something different from them that leads to the death of one couple. Will the other couple meet the same fate? Let's find out in the 1999 science fiction and horror movie The Astronaut's Wife. One night, a couple named Spencer and Jillian spend the whole time before Spencer flies into space the next day. Spencer is a renowned astronaut of NASA, and he will be sent to space with his friend and Captain Alex. As a loving and supportive wife, Jillian is so proud of him, but she cannot help herself but worry for his husband's safety. In turn, Spencer promises her that he will call her whenever he can. Jillian thinks he's joking, but Spencer assures her that he will do it and that he will be fine. The next day, the launch commences, and it's a total success. Meanwhile, Jillian is at work, teaching kids from second grade. And to her surprise, Spencer indeed calls him from space through NASA's command center. She asks how he can call from space, to which he answers that it's because he's still within Earth's orbit. This call is very short, yet it's enough for Jillian to know that her husband is doing well. After work, Jillian is with her sister Nan, and they are talking about Spencer. Even Nan cannot believe that Spencer managed to call from space, stating that Jillian is very lucky with her husband. Later at home, suddenly, she accidentally cuts her finger while slicing vegetables, and her gut is telling her that something bad happened to Spencer. Looking at the TV, Jillian comes across news about his husband and their friend Alex, but as she is about to turn up the volume, she switches the channel instead because of nervousness. When she tries to look for the news channel again, the doorbell rings. Telling Nan to keep looking for the said channel, Jillian checks who's on the door and sees a man named Reese, who claims that he's from NASA. Reese says she needs to come with him because his husband and Alex had an accident in space. Alex's wife, Natalie, is already at NASA. Just then, Jillian hears her sister calling her, and when she goes back inside, she sees on the news what Reese is talking about. Worried, Jillian asks frankly if Spencer is still alive, but Reese doesn't know the answer as well. Due to that, she goes with him to NASA, where she is greeted by a worried Natalie. The two wives hug each other, and Jillian does her best to stay hopeful and positive. Shortly after, an officer of NASA shows up and tells the good news that Spencer and Alex are alive. Also, the two men are currently at the orbiter, and they will be sent back to Earth immediately. Jillian takes the opportunity and asks what happened to their husbands. According to the NASA officer, Spencer and Alex were outside the orbiter to do some repairs on the satellite when an explosion suddenly occurred. The command center lost contact with the two of them for around 2 minutes. The explosion then caused the two to drift behind the shuttle, but they managed to take them back after bringing the craft around 180 degrees. Afterward, the officer excuses himself, but she notifies Jillian and Natalie that if they need something, Reese will provide it for them. Natalie breaks down crying, but Jillian comforts her, stating that what's important is that their husbands are alive. At this time, Reese put up a camera feed of the shuttle so the two women can see it as it lands back on Earth. Sometime later, the astronauts are finally back on Earth and given proper medical attention. Jillian talks to the doctor who is assigned to Spencer, and he gladly tells her that her husband is out of harm's way. Also, it will not take long before he regains his consciousness. Hearing this, Jillian is finally relieved of her worries. But when she asked about Alex, the doctor says his condition is a bit more complicated than Spencer's because they found a strain on his heart. As expected, Spencer eventually wakes up and he immediately looks for his wife. Seeing this, Jillian cries in happiness and hugs her husband. On the other hand, Alex suffers from convulsions while screaming Spencer's name like they see something scary. It takes several doctors and nurses to calm him down, but his heart suddenly stops beating. Fortunately, the doctor manages to revive him, but when he looks outside, his gaze goes past Natalie, straight to Spencer. After a few days, Spencer and Alex are discharged from the hospital, and they are given an award by the President of the United States of America for their service and heroism. After the event, Spencer reveals to Jillian that he has decided to resign from the service to spend more time with her. He also adds that he was offered an executive position in an aerospace firm and decided to take it to continue providing for the two of them and their future children. The only catch is he will be assigned to New York City. Although in doubt because the two of them are not used to city life, Jillian states that she will support and be with him all the time, no matter where he decides to go. While the two of them are talking, Reese is suspiciously watching over them from a distance. On the night before their trip to New York, Spencer and Jillian attend a party that Spencer's co-workers prepare for them. There they spend all night drinking, singing, and partying. At this moment, Spencer excuses himself from Jillian to talk to Nan. Reese is also there, and he's still watching Jillian's movements. Alone, Jillian notices that Alex and Natalie are arguing at the other table. Then, she witnesses how Alex aggressively kisses Natalie against her wish. After that, Alex starts coughing badly and looks for Spencer. And to everyone's shock, he suddenly collapses and dies right then and there. The next day, NASA holds a press conference to address Alex's death. One reporter asks if his death is related to the previous accident he was involved in and if Spencer is in danger as well. A doctor from NASA answers this question by stating that Spencer underwent an extensive amount of examinations and tests to make sure that he is healthy. According to her, he's not in danger anymore, and Alex's death has nothing to do with what happened to the both of them in space. Later in a private ceremony in Alex's residence, Nan, who's accommodating the visitors, greets Jillian and Spencer. Jillian finds Natalie in the back alone. To console her friend, Jillian goes to her and gives her condolences. But for some weird reason, Natalie shares with her that Alex used to talk to what she refers to as them all the time. Confused, Jillian asks who's they, and Natalie just points to the radio. Thinking that her friend is experiencing trauma, Jillian cannot help but feel sorry and pity for Natalie. Just then, she decides to give her some time alone, yet before she leaves, Natalie cryptically says that Alex is inside of her. Not long after, when Jillian left her alone, everybody in the wake hears a girl screaming. Upon checking it out, Jillian, Spencer, and Reese are horrified when they see Natalie take herself out by electrocuting herself using the radio in the restroom. A few days passed and Jillian and Spencer finally moved to New York City. At a party held by Spencer's employer, Jillian feels out of place hanging out with rich women. Luckily for her, she meets and befriends a kind woman named Shelley who turns out to be the wife of Spencer's employer. Some time later, Jillian decides to take a rest because she's drunk. At this time, Spencer is finally done talking to other people and approaches his wife. Taking up all her courage, Jillian asks Spencer what truly happened in space, especially in those 2 minutes that NASA had no contact with them. At first, Spencer is reluctant to answer it, but he changes his mind and brings Jillian somewhere where nobody can see them. While telling her how dark it is in space after the explosion, his hand is starting to roam around her body, arousing her. While doing so, Spencer is feeling Jillian's pulse from time to time. Then, he reveals that he almost died back then, but when he remembers Jillian, he managed to survive. After this moment of teasing, the two go home and continue what they are doing. When Jillian wakes up, she notices that Spencer is not beside her. Looking for her husband, she finds him sitting in front of the radio, listening to some static noise. But when she calls on him, he immediately changes the station to one that plays a song. The next day, she goes to work and manages to find a school where she can teach children again. A few days later, Jillian discovers that she is pregnant. Then one night, she and Spencer are invited to his boss' house for dinner. As she listens to the conversation between the two men about different aircraft for war, she finds it hard to relate to their topic. A little later, the boss and Shelley are notified by their butler that they are being called by the boss mother. When the two are left alone, Spencer asks if Jillian is okay because he's been noticing that she's spacing out. In turn, Jillian honestly tells her husband that she cannot understand a single word that he and his boss were talking about. And this time, she reveals to Spencer that she is pregnant. Spencer is very happy that they immediately go to an OB-GYN so they can be guided properly in Jillian's pregnancy journey. But what surprises the husband and wife the most is the fact that Jillian is carrying twins. After the checkup, Jillian talks to the doctor privately and tells her that after her mother died, she had been hallucinating and seeing her dead parents, sometimes even herself dead. Even though she seeks treatment and is now healed, she's worried that her mental health condition before can affect her pregnancy and her twins. The doctor then assures her that she's going to be fine as long as she has the people that love her around. Later that night, she has a nightmare of the time when she saw Natalie lying dead in the restroom. But instead of her friend, she is seeing herself dead. When she wakes up, Spencer comforts her, saying that it's just a nightmare. And to help her relax, he bathes her. There, Jillian wonders what their twins will be like, and Spencer says that he wants them to be as beautiful as Jillian, but to be pilots just like him. One day, Jillian decides to go to a baby shop when she is approached by Reese, who's carrying a satchel. Compared to before, Reese looks more paranoid and wasted now. Seeing that she's pregnant, Reese states that he needs to talk to him about Spencer. Thinking that he's looking for her husband, she tells him where he is currently working, but Reese insists that she's the one he wants to talk to about those 2 minutes that his husband spent in space. Showing her different files, Reese explains that after the accident, Spencer seems a little bit odd and different, like his signature from before, and after the incident is vaguely different. At this time, Jillian is starting to be creeped out by what Reese is saying, so she asks if he's here on behalf of an official NASA business. Hearing Reese says he's not with NASA anymore because they terminated his employment, Jillian decides to leave, but Reese keeps on following her. Because Jillian is not listening anymore, this leaves Reese with no choice but to tell her that Natalie was 6 weeks pregnant when she takes herself out. This stops Jillian in her tracks, and just then, Reese gives her a recorder that contains the recording file during the incident, saying that Spencer and Alex were highly well-trained astronauts, and whatever explosion they encounter, they will know what to do. But that incident before caused panic and scare to them, meaning they encountered something that they were not trained for. Finally, Reese drops the million-dollar question and asks if she believes that the Spencer with him is truly the Spencer she knows. At home, Jillian thinks carefully about what Reese told her. And when she listens to the recorder, there's nothing that seems to be wrong about it, except that Alex is screaming in terror and looking for Spencer. Confused, Jillian destroys the recorder and trashes it. Shortly after, Nan arrives, and she's so happy to see her sister again. Then, Jillian tells Nan about her encounter with Reese earlier and everything that he said to her. Hearing this, Nan advises her to not dwell much on Reese's words. She also suggests that they tell Spencer so he can deal with Reese, but Jillian pleads with her not to tell her husband about it. However, the next day, Jillian still cannot remove from her system what Reese told her, especially about Natalie's pregnancy. Because of that, Jillian calls him and asks what the autopsy found out about Natalie's baby. And when Reese corrects her that Natalie was having babies, Jillian realizes that Natalie was pregnant with twins just like her. Chills run down her spine, and she decides to meet with Reese to find out more. However, just as when Jillian arrives at their meeting place, Spencer shows up, forcing her to hide. Spencer insists on having coffee with Reese despite his rejection, so Reese makes a way to leave his satchel for Jillian to get it, but Spencer manages to see and grab it for him. When she gets home, she gets into an argument with Nan, thinking that she's the one who told Spencer about Reese. However, Nan insists that she didn't do it because she promised her not to. Their argument heats up and it ends with Nan leaving the apartment. Making a way to talk to Reese, Jillian calls the hotel where he is staying, but no one is answering from his unit. As luck would have it for her, Reese leaves her a key to a storage locker. There she finds several recent photographs of Spencer, different files, and a VHS tape that has her name on it. Suddenly, the lights in the place turn off, Jillian panics and runs around, but she cannot find the exit until she bumps into other people who just casually turn the lights back on. She immediately goes home to watch the tape, and she is horrified by what she discovers. In the tape, Reese begins by saying that if she's watching the tape, that means he's already dead. Then, he shows her the recording feed from another recorder that has the same file as the one she destroyed. In the feed, there are 3 recorded voices that belong to Spencer, Alex, and another unidentified creature. Reese analyzes the third file, which seems to be a normal static sound, but as it plays, Jillian kind of understands what it means. According to Reese, this recording comes from another form of life that's not from Earth. And in just 2 minutes, whatever it is manages to get inside Spencer and Alex. Reese boldly claims that the Spencer that she is with is not her husband anymore, and that she is carrying the twins that will be the pilots who will lead the other aliens to the Earth. Without her noticing, Spencer comes home just in time after Reese's tape ends. Spencer says he comes home early because he feels bad for Jillian after her fight with Nan. So he brings home a VHS tape of a movie that they can watch together. Jillian reluctantly agrees and is lucky that Spencer doesn't ask much about the tape that she was just watching. As they watch the movie, they fall asleep and Spencer dreams about the time he and Alex were fixing the satellite and they got attacked by something. Upon waking up, Jillian seems to have shared the dream with him, so she asks if he dreamed of something, but Spencer denies it. The following day, Jillian meets with Shelley, who gives her medical abortion pills. Shelley explains that it will just hurt for a while, but after that, her babies will be gone as if she had a miscarriage. She also assures Jillian that Spencer will not suspect a thing. Going home, Jillian is still conflicted about whether she will abort her twins or not. While this is happening, she is also having an image of her babies as if they're appealing to her conscience. Although she is convinced that what's inside her is not human, she still doesn't have the guts to kill them because they're just babies. At this time, Spencer shows up and Jillian realizes that the twins communicated him. He then assaults her and she immediately goes for a run. But no matter where she goes, Spencer corners her. And when her stomach hurts, she loses her balance and falls down the stairs. Sometime later, she wakes up in a hospital and Spencer tells her that their babies are still inside. But he threatens her not to do anything stupid ever again. He also doesn't disclose to the doctors that she tried to abort the twins. According to him, if they ever find out, they will lock her up in the hospital. After a while, Nan arrives at the hospital and the two sisters reconcile and apologize to each other. Jillian tries to tell her sister the truth about Spencer and the twins, but because Nan thinks she's still in shock after the fall, she just dismisses it. Yet, Jillian insists that Spencer is hiding inside her, just like how Natalie states that Alex was inside her before. Later that night, Nan comes home and finds out that Spencer is hiding Reese's satchel. She is starting to connect the dots, realizing that Spencer is indeed doing something to her sister. Nan confronts him and Spencer attacks and ends up killing her. When Jillian sees them, it's already too late. Just then, she wakes up and feels relieved that it was just a nightmare. Yet, she is still bothered by the nightmare, so she sneaks out of the hospital and back to their apartment. Knowing that Spencer is tailing her, she moves fast and locks the door as soon as she gets inside, putting up a barricade for added protection. Jillian then goes to a room where Nan was murdered in her nightmare and finds nothing. Thinking that her sister is safe, she decides to end it all right then and there. Grabbing a radio, Jillian lets the sink flow, and when Spencer finally barges inside the room, he sees her standing in the water, ready to end her and the twins' lives. He tries to talk her out of it and reaches for her hand. At this time, Jillian sees little wounds on his hand that are evidence of a struggle, just like how Nan fought back in her nightmare. Realizing that Spencer actually killed her sister, she cryingly confronts him until Spencer finally reveals the truth to her about his identity. According to him, he killed Spencer and lived inside his body. Then, he impregnated Jillian and killed Nan. Pointing at her stomach where the twins are, fake Spencer states that he's living inside her. Not wanting to waste time anymore, he telepathically moves the chair where Jillian is sitting to get her out of the water. But suddenly, water comes flowing from above them, drenching him wet. As it turns out, Jillian turns on every faucet in the apartment and lets it flow. Taking the opportunity, she lifts her feet out of the water and connects the plug, electrocuting fake Spencer in the process. At this moment, she finally sees the alien going out of her husband's body, which is like a translucent liquid-like creature. But just as she thinks that she already beats it, the alien just transfers into her body and possesses Jillian next. After a few years, the twins are now young boys and Jillian is married to a pilot in the Air Force. The family seems to be getting well, and her new husband loves her twins as if they're his own. When the school bus arrives, Jillian and her new husband look at the twins with the hope of them growing old as a pilot just like their stepfather. The movie ends with the twins going to school, signifying that the alien is triumphant in the end. The Astronaut's Wife is a good thriller film. Johnny Depp's performance is good, and he gives off that mysterious and suspicious husband vibe. However, the pacing is slow, which can cause boredom to some viewers, and the final act seems to be lacking. The movie builds up so much the revelation of the alien, only for it to show for brief seconds. Regardless, The Astronaut's Wife lives up to its claim as a science fiction and thriller movie.